Welcome to the Soft Life with SADDIE BADDIES. SADDIE BADDIES is the antidote to mental health stigma, and this podcast is hosted by yours truly, Priscilla O. Adjaman. We are a virtual sanctuary centering Black and multiracial people, and we prioritize the mental and emotional nourishment that is the foundation of collective healing in our communities. Thank you for being here. Hello, baddies. Welcome back to the Soft Life podcast. Today we have the most special guest, Alex Wolf. And Alex Wolf has been a dream guest of ours since we started the podcast. And we are so excited to have Alex with us today. Welcome to the show, Alex. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. I'm excited.
We're so happy to have you here with us. And can you describe how you're feeling right now in this very moment? Give us some descriptors for the
I'm feeling
girls.
very rising in Gemini. Like I'm like,
Ooh.
I've had so many phone calls. I've been to like 7 parties in the past 3 days. I'm just social butterflying it right now.
I feel you. I feel you. And you are currently in Miami, right?
hmm
Okay. Well, we, obviously are big fans of your work and just who you are just outside of social media too. Like, everything that you've shared over the last decade has been so influential. So we definitely want to get into a little bit of your work, but also who you are as a person and what you're currently doing, what's bringing you joy. I know that you've been sharing and kind of giving us tidbits of your journey along the way on social media for those of us who've been following you. So we'll definitely get into that. But in your own words, can you kind of take us back to your origin story and how you would describe your upbringing?
Yeah, so I'm deeply influenced by Brooklyn, which is where I was raised. Um, I have an Italian dad and a black mom. So being biracial also deeply influenced my upbringing and perspective on life. And my dad is also in technology. And so I was raised with a lot of early products, and my dad's an early adopter. So we had the internet first, we had cell phones first, we had webcams first. And so that exposure um, preempted me to want to pursue, I guess, internet entrepreneurship. And so I also, I guess, always had. College didn't make sense to me in my early 20s. I didn't feel like it made financial sense. I was expected to pay for it myself. And I did the math and I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this
That's
is
not
gonna,
mathing.
I'm like, what else can I do? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I started um, with doing social media consulting as an 18-year-old. This is before like social media took over or was understood as a massive marketing channel. And eventually built my first company called Boss Babe. And that was like a huge moment in millennial culture, like work culture. Like that was like an era where we were all boss babes, girl bosses, and wearing pink and
Yeah.
on our ambitious tip. And I sold that company in 2018 and started working with tech companies and helping them build brand strategy and consumer engagement campaigns for their audiences. And then I got burnt out and I took a break for like 2 years and decided to move to South Florida to just get a fresh start. And now I am back on social media. And in that time away, I had been online my whole life. So I had never gotten to know myself offline. And I just started like trying stuff, taking classes. And one of the classes I took was a pole dance class. And I fell in love. And so now I'm back on social media and I'm doing pole dancing recreationally and just showing more of my artistic, creative side now. So
We love it. We love to see it. I have been following you and, just going kind of through the lens of watching you grow and kind of watching you do this different expression, this form of expression through pole art. So we definitely will get into that. We have a couple questions about that because I know that that's
Okay.
been making you, yeah, super happy and bringing you a lot of joy. And it's beautiful to just to witness you sharing your art with the world. Because I'm honestly, what else are we here to do on this earth if not to share our creativity? So,
There you go.
yeah, I know that you wrote a best selling book called Resonate in 2018, and Resonate's
Hmm.
focus really outlined how you can grow an audience through authenticity, through storytelling and creativity. And
Hmm.
I personally believe that Resonate, I did read, um, and I feel like it was before its time in some ways. And now
Thank
we're
you.
seeing a lot of
Yeah.
people become more outspoken about tech culture and community, and calling themselves experts. But you were one of, if not the OG and the original thought leader when it comes to this specific topic. You are also the only person I've ever known and heard the label as tech philosopher. But what would you say now would be like your most fulfilling, like looking back, 6 years now, what would you say in terms of how that process of writing Resonate and what it led you to today?
Um, I think that I still feel like an artist entrepreneur, you know, and I think it rings more true now. Like I feel like back then I was still more kind of I felt more like an aspiring
Mm.
artist, and now I feel more like rooted in my artistry as well as my entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel
Hmm.
like also just the work that you have done, even past 2018 and, beyond, I feel like it speaks for itself. And it's almost like when an artist creates their work of art, or create something that people would consider a masterpiece, they don't really need a follow-up after that. They're like, hey, it's done, the work, the art is speaking for itself, and like you said, you can embody that freely. um,
Yeah.
I learned about you and your work through that very specific era in 2020, the Clubhouse era, as I call it. And
Okay.
yeah, that's when I became familiar with your work, and of course your podcast, the Alex Wolf podcast, as well as your
You're bringing up
collaboration.
all these things I forgot to mention. I'm like, oh, yeah, I had a book and a podcast and I did this and yeah.
I'll be like
But I appreciate all the kind words.
I'll be like your human hard drive in this in this moment. But your collaboration with Dropbox, which was the creative capital, which shared a lot of insight, and I recommended that to so many friends in our SADDIE BADDIES community for anyone who's just curious about, like, how to and really look at your work and your creativity through a wider lens, right? So I know that these are some of the projects and the work that you've done, but what were some of the biggest takeaways you've learned through the community that you built during that time in that space, or just through your own process
Mhm.
of those digital archives?
I think the biggest takeaway is invest in your networking, invest in your ability to be a connector, to meet new people, and also just trust that your authentic energy is what you're going to like need to use, because I think that I went through the typical insecurities around like, am I too this? Am I too ghetto? Am I too
Yeah.
creative? Do they not understand me? And um I'm just now at a point where I'm like, maybe I am a little too ghetto, maybe I am a little too creative for this crowd, but
Yeah.
that's why it works, because those
Yeah.
things make it very clear to others when and if they should call me, you know.
Mm.
Um, so whatever your unique attributes are, trust that that's actually going to be what people depend on you for when they need you. and they're not
Yeah.
things that you have to like snip at.
Yeah. Yes. And I recently rewatched your YouTube video slash the fraudcast. If you know, you know.
Um,
But I
yeah.
recently rewatched it. The video about the girl who made Millennial Pink. And, I know the basis of the video, you really shared how the similarities to Elle Woods in Legally Blonde and how she was criticized and scrutinized for her femininity and her girliness, but that is exactly what made her special. That's what made her that, for lack of a better word, that bitch, honestly. And um I'm kind of hearing like some echoes in that and just even your
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Yes.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think now, obviously, we're in this space where we're learning, we're seeing people kind of repackage a lot of old concepts, like, the divine feminine energy and the divine masculine, all of these, theories, but are just truly repackaged. Um, I also would love to know, how would you continue to champion the ideal of being, whether it is hyper feminine or flamboyant or loud? How would you encourage someone who wants to show up, especially in these male dominated, tech spaces or just a male dominated space in general? How would you champion for women to show up more authentically and unapologetically?
Well, I mean, there's not much more to it than just doing it. But I guess there is doing it just knowing how how powerful and important you showing up as a strong woman, how important and like how strong and how important that means for the rest of us, because basically like it took all of us being bold enough to fight for our rights, to make space in these places. Like we have to continue to do that and show up that way for each other. So I would just say, think about the rest of us. Usually that helps me when I think about all the women who came before me to make space for me in places and how all of these rights were earned and fought for. Like these are privileges I do not just take lightly. And so I do
Yeah.
think it's up to us to continue to keep that space, make more of it for the rest of us, and just know that like we are valid in our own power to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. I know that you've mentioned that you grew up in the Bay Area as a teenager. You moved from New York to the Bay Area, and
Mhm.
during the height of this tech boom era. And I'm
Yep.
sure that, being one of the early adapters of social media, that probably was like blew your mind of being in that space in that time,
Yep.
in that specific moment. But what were some of the highlights of that era for you? Like, take us back to Alex in that circa in the Bay Area as a teenager and just vibing essentially.
Yeah, I just remember the guy talk like at the end of a lot of these panels,
Mm-hmm.
where they would brag about how this stock got this high or this crypto performed like this, and like there was just a lot of like flexi culture. Like I remember this guy was what like really wanted to show me his Tesla, and I mean I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to see it. It was like the first Tesla, like this is like the first like this is when there was like none of them around. And but there was just such strong male ego energy just really running. I mean, the same charge of energy that is in the chips of these computers and the fibers of the internet. It,
Mm-hmm.
it felt like it was that intense. And I remember when like Facebook still had the thumbs up like
Yeah.
in front of like the headquarters. I don't even think they have that anymore. I don't know. It was just a very sprawling time. It was giving very much like the HBO show, Silicon Valley. It was very much giving all of that. And then because you have like the tech flexy, sexy flexy bros, and then you have like the actual engineers that are like the
Yeah.
nerdy, sweeter guys that
The
like can
developers.
actually build something. Yeah, like can
Yeah.
actually like have deep conversations with you and know
Yeah.
about computer science, but they're not the same guys like raising the money. And then of course you
Right.
have the women too. You have the women who are um, trying to raise their funds, trying to keep up in these rooms, and a lot of them doing it. And it was just, it was just such a, this is my PowerPoint. This is my idea. We're trying to raise $10 million our first round. Like, and
Yeah.
that was like normal. So a lot of that stuff has kind of slowed down. That culture has slowed down, but it was an error for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure. I that reminds me of just the mockumentary. It's kind of like a series, really, of the story of Uber in Silicon Valley, and now that we're kind of just seeing like repeats of like startup documentaries or startup drama series on Netflix, and yeah, a lot of that kind of sounds like it resonates.
100%. And like the weird hobbies, like there was this one guy I met where he was into sailboat racing, like racing on
Oh,
sailboats. And it was all these like rich guys who had nothing better. Like it's that kind of stuff. Or like going to like getting invited to like mysterious parties, all of that. Like California's, those hills are filled with like secrets and weirdos. And it's always been that way. So all the
well,
way from the Bay to LA.
for clarification, it's everywhere, not just LA. Very, very,
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah. In
yeah.
California for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Cali, I mean, I love the West Coast, but I mean, being an East Coast girl myself and being born and raised in Jersey and then moving to New York at 18 and spending basically the rest of my adulthood here, I'm like, it is definitely a different type of vibe. I appreciate it, but I feel like in New York, you can kind of tell a little bit more upfront if someone's being real with you or not. In LA, it could be misconstrued or just like there's like this layer
You'll
of
be
like
having dinner with your worst enemy and not
yeah,
know.
with
What
your
I like to
ops.
tell what I like to tell what I like to tell my friends who move to LA is you're either or California, you're either gonna get one of these three things. You're gonna become a food like Nazi, like super religious about food, you're or an eating disorder, or join a cult, or all three. That's what I tell them.
The
And I'm never
trifecta.
wrong. One
The
of them always
real
happens.
the real trifecta. Yeah,
That's the
honestly,
trifecta
I've been noticing so many cult documentaries. That's actually like a super niche interest of mine is like cult documentaries, and every one after the other
thing.
is like has to be. It's like always LA, Seattle. So I'm like, what's going on there? Why are people not noticing that you're joining an MLM? It's not a real business. Like, I don't
Right.
know. Something's in the water,
I'm
but
telling you, it's a thing. It's a thing. And they always come back like, you were right. I'm like, I told you.
oh my gosh. Well, I know that you've spoken and you always say this in, I think, a lot of your commentary online about social media being fickle and the importance of having a connection to your community beyond social media.
Yeah.
Beyond just, obviously having a newsletter, a mailing list, what else would you say is essential or key for a creative entrepreneur or business owner who wants to stay engaged with their online communities?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to someone about this because someone in my audience was like, you should really create a community out of the women in your audience. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm working on that. So we were like brainstorming ideas
Mhm.
on ways to do that
Mm,
that would add a lot of value to everyone. But one of the things we were talking about is how shifting the focus from like content strategy and like brand like personal branding to like how do I become a socialite? How do I become a master like networker?
mm,
Because I think that like what I've noticed now that when people ask me now like, "Oh, what should I do to like build community?" I'm like throw a party, like go
Yeah.
outside, go to in-person events, like
Yeah.
make friends outside, like brush up on your in real life social skills.
Yeah.
Today on my social media, I was like, if you can just say hi to 5 more people a day, your
Yeah,
life
I
will
saw
change in
that.
30 days.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
fact. That is a fact.
So anyone who's like,
Yeah.
how do I engage my community or build
Mhm.
a community? You go outside. Like,
Yeah.
it's a little cliche, but it's also like it makes a big difference and it just gives you so much more confidence because
Yeah.
I think like as an internet girl, I was too digital. Like I was too
Yeah.
virtual. I existed purely as like pixels to people. Like even in my early days when I would go to speaking events and
Yeah.
my best friend Skittles, she's like the opposite. She says hi to 10 people a day, like 20 people a day. She'll just go to another country just to meet people, which I love that and it's rubbed off
Yeah.
on me. But I was the exact opposite. Like I was just like, I'm really good at building audiences online, but I pretty much don't exist outside of that. So I would go to like speaking events. I would speak in front of like 200 people, 500 people, and just zoop, like gone. And I'm back into just being an Instagram girl.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's just because of my own issues, which I've had to go to therapy and deal with. But now that I've solved a lot of it, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like I actually, just like everyone else, I'm a human being and I'm
Yeah.
programmed to have meaningful connections with people in real life. And wow, this makes such a difference to my
Yeah.
quality of life. I want more. How do I build more? How do I help other people build more? So that would
Yeah.
be my advice for that.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, I feel like I cannot emphasize how important it is to be a girl's girl and like genuinely a girl's girl, like not just someone that's like, like hashtag feminism, like dead ass a girl's girl and support women and be around other women. And I feel like sisterhood is so underrated in terms of not just like how to maximize your community, but truly sisterhood is so healing and so nourishing. And some of us are missing out on so many beautiful relationships because we're afraid to say hi or we're afraid to break the ice or meet someone.
Be
So
vulnerable. Yeah.
yeah, be vulnerable. Exactly. So would love to know how sisterhood or your friendships have helped you in your stage of womanhood right now.
I mean, they're my bloodline. They're my lifeline. Like,
Yeah.
I think that transitioning from your 20s to your 30s, like, girl power means a whole different thing
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
stage. And I'm guessing it only gets more intense as we get older. But, I just feel strongly that your quality of life depends on the friendships that you have
Yeah.
and being able to have fun with the girls. Like, we forget about fun. We stop prioritizing fun. We think fun is
Yeah.
just for when you're a kid or when you're, in your 20s. And I'm like, I'm only expecting to have more fun every year as I get older.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what
Yes.
y'all are talking about. And so
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, like having your girls. And look, I don't even think they all need to be besties, right? We all
Yeah.
have like the girl you can call at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And then you have just like girls that you see, like even in my dance
Yeah.
studio, I'm not besties with these girls, but just
Yeah.
having familiar faces and just being like, hey, and having all this
Yeah.
progress together bonds us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's on having a life outside of work. Like you will not be able to have that
And
unless you have
then,
a life outside of work and go
yeah.
out and do things and have hobbies and passions. And speaking of passions, of course, I would love, 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 love to talk about pole art. And I know that you've been sharing your journey as a pole artist and expressing yourself through movement and this specific movement and art form. What inspired you to try this new medium? Like, what was the first day of like signing up for class or just going to the studio? How did you lean into this? And I guess better question is, what sparked this curiosity for you? And how do you see pole art integrating into your creative practices in the future?
Yeah, so it was during that time when I was doing a lot of inventory and work on myself. And every test or everything I was reading, I was always just scoring low on like interpersonal relationships. It'd be like, okay, this is okay, your confidence is okay, and your this is okay, and your that is okay, but like
Yeah.
you do not have enough relationships in your life. And I was dealing with depression, I was dealing with CPTSD, I was dealing with hypervigilance. More CPTSD and hypervigilance than depression, but still, like, I
Mm.
was just not comfortable in my own skin, and I was
And
just like determined to figure out
s-
how to fix this. And every
CPTSD
book and
for, oh, sorry, just wanted to clarify for anyone who's not familiar. CPTSD is complex PTSD, correct?
yes.
Okay.
So basically, instead of having a major traumatic event, you have like micro
Mm,
traumatic events that have accumulated over time, usually in childhood.
yeah.
And basically, like the basis of trauma in this context is feelings of like helplessness and powerlessness. So if you were a
Mm,
kid and ever were like put in that position more than once,
yeah.
then over time it'll affect your neurobiological development, where literally your nervous system's jacked, and then that's why you end up feeling like, you're in adrenaline, you're hypervigilant, your heart is racing. So that was me. Like it would
Mm,
be a regular day and I'm like, a plane is going to fall out of the sky and hit me. I like, that's how hypervigilant I was. And I was just like, something is not right. Like, how is
yeah.
everyone else so chill? So anyway, I'm reading all these books and everything was like, take a class, go meet people. And I'm like, what about this? Can't I do this? But there was no going around it. So it
Yeah.
was one of those things where I was like, okay, you really want to fix this. Sounds like you're actually going to have to go meet people.
Yeah.
So I tried different things. Like I tried like a walking club and a this and that. And, some things were hits and misses. But when I got to pole, because again, I'm like, I want to make girlfriends. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily expecting to fall in love with the pole. So God is good because I made
Yes.
friends and I fell in love with the pole. So that is what led me there. But I was just like looking for like girls in my area that I felt like
Hmm.
I was always interested in dance. Like when I'm being really honest, that's one of
Hmm.
those things I like pushed aside like as a kid, but I always was interested in like being a ballerina and dancing. And I've always loved platforms ever since Baby Spice.
She
I'm
was the
like,
baddest.
something
She was
about,
the baddest.
yeah.
Yep. Love Baby Spice
I was like,
Jam.
if I get to wear these shoes, I think I would like to try this. So, so yeah, and pole is great because it's so it challenges you, it pushes you mentally, it
Hmm.
makes you a stronger person physically, mentally, spiritually. It just pushes you, and I just feel like it saved my life in so many ways. It just
Wow.
I can go on and on. I'm a
That's
fanatic.
beautiful. That's so beautiful, and I'm so happy that you followed that curiosity, and also sounds like you tried multiple things before you finally found the thing that stuck and really clicked for you. So I think that just goes to show that sometimes it's not about the specific way you go about it. It's just not giving up and being able to be open to it so that you can have it also find you, because it does kind of find you in a way. That's beautiful. One of my friends is a pole artist, and I ran into her the other day, and she was telling me how I asked her, I was like, how has pole um, helped you in terms of like just your femininity, and how does it make you feel? And she was like, girl, I work in advertising. Like, I need pole because I work in a very male dominated space, and this makes me feel so free. So
Yeah,
yeah, I love that. That's
I love
beautiful.
that. A lot of the girls in
Yeah,
my studio are like doctors and lawyers and like, so and teachers, and like this is their place to just
their safe
not
space.
be that.
Yes. I love it. I love it. We all need like actual third spaces, physical third spaces, not just digital ones where we can be ourselves. So I love that for you.
Mhm.
Um, how do you see somatic practices or just using your body or movement more in general? How do you use somatic practices to reconnect with yourself with such a busy schedule?
Well, I prioritize it. Like, I don't care how busy I am. If
Yeah.
I'm not in that studio or in my body, like I'm out of whack. So one of the ways I practice in particular is I do like a freestyle dance class
Mm,
where there's not any like real rules. And I think that's important to let your body improv.
mhm.
And even if you do it at home, just like blast some music, move your furniture over. That's the other thing I love about dance. Like you just need a floor. That's it.
Yeah.
And just like let your body do it at once. And I see girls come in and out, and like freestyle in the beginning is hard because you're like awkward. You're like, I don't know what to do. It's even more awkward if you're
Yeah.
in a room with other people, but it's like
Yeah.
you feel awkward. You don't know. But all that awkwardness is
Yeah.
part of what needs to get out
Yeah.
because the energy's pent up. You don't know how to release it. You don't know how to let it out of your fingertips and your hips. And
Yeah.
so the more you can just trust it, and not, it doesn't need to be pretty. It doesn't need to be a
Yeah.
performance for like the world. This is just for your body to release tension and release emotions. Like
Yeah.
that is what I love about dance is like I'm learning about my body tells me what the hell is going on.
Mhm.
Like I'm like, okay, this is what you need. Oh, you need more love in the hamstrings today.
Yeah.
Oh, hips are tight. Like, oh,
Yeah.
shoulders need some want to move around. And I just think that it helps keep me balanced. It helps our well-being. It helps our chi, our life force be
Yes.
strong so we're full of life.
That is a fact. That is such a fact. And honestly, I think this is such a good time, especially just not only because it's summer, it's nice out. Like, get out of the house. Like, I'll be like, just get out of the house. I swear, just getting out, go on a walk, start slow, but eventually finding like the thing that makes you spark and gives you that light in your eye. Like, that is literally why we exist. That's why we're put on this earth. I mean, I'm a firm believer of that, but I feel like winter also, especially if you live on a coast that has, a heavy winter or like fall, whatever,
Mhm.
there's a lot of stagnant energy that happens. And I feel like spring and summer, you literally need to shake that shit out. Like, I really don't know how else to put it because even for me, I work from home. And so I have like, a bike, like a cycling bike, and I have weights and all this stuff and like a yoga mat. I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. I need to get out and I need to move this energy and I need the sun to hit me. Like I'm a human being. I cannot just be like this, like this, like this
Yeah.
yeah, just be inside all day and not like move your body and go outside and just explore and do things. So I feel like I'm also falling back in love with movement now, and it's much easier because it's nice out. But even when it's not, I've made that commitment to myself to still like maintain this practice of like moving my body. For me right now, it's like lifting weights. It makes me feel like a badass. Like I love seeing that I'm able to get stronger every single day and it's not fixated on a
Mhm.
specific body goal. It's just like, no, I'm strong as fuck. And that makes me feel good. That makes me feel sexy. And so I feel like people finding that thing for them, it's only going to bring out that like energy, like you said, and the chi in us, you know?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So my last question for you before we move on to the rapid fire is what does softness
Mhm.
mean to you as a woman?
Hmm. When I hear soft, I think of the spider's web,
Mm,
which is soft but very strong. Um, I think that softness is a particular type of strength, and um, it's deceiving because
yeah,
it appears fragile, but that's because it yields. And a lot of people don't recognize the strength in the yield because yields absorb force as opposed to resist it. And resisting force just creates more tension versus like if you absorb an attack and like it bounces back on that person, whether this is physically, spiritually, emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, um, it always goes back to the other person. So that's what I think of. And I think as women, we got somewhat blinded away from our spider's webs
Mm,
and got like kind of tricked into thinking we also need to fight with force and resistance. Um, and look, sometimes you do,
yeah.
but there is a lot of power in trusting that soft strength. It's hard though, because you have to release control,
Yeah.
which also takes strength.
Yes, that's a fact. It also takes vulnerability in order to realize that you need that support or that you need to yield as well. So I love that image. That's really powerful and such a great visualization for softness and everything that it can represent. Thank you so much, Alex. Well, we are going to slide into the rapid fire section. Are you ready?
Yes,
Okay. All right. So, first question, pole dancing or ballet?
pole dancing,
Okay. Nokia flip phone or Motorola Razor phone?
razor phone.
Mm, that sharp edge is something else. Um, if you
Mhm.
could only choose one method of communicating to your online community, would it be a newsletter, YouTube, podcasts, or a message in a bottle?
Old me would definitely pick message in a bottle. New me would say YouTube.
Hmm. We love YouTube. What is the go-to song when you are practicing your pole art that just gets you in the right vibe?
Love in this club, Usher.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good
It's
one.
like the best pole song
Yeah,
ever.
that's a good one. Okay, last question. Nomadic lifestyle or laying your roots down somewhere?
um, Nomadic.
Freedom.
Yeah.
We love that. Thank you so much, Alex, for chatting with us today.
Thank you.
This has been such a great
Yes.
conversation. And please let the people know where to find you and where to stay in touch.
Yes, you can find me at Alex Wolf on Instagram. Subscribe to my newsletter. I send
Mhm.
out monthly mood boards for artists and creatives to get inspiration for your own creative storytelling online.
We love it. We'll be sure to link all of your socials, your website, your newsletter in the show notes. And thank you so much for being here. We
Thank
appreciate you
you.
and stay soft. To stay connected, join SADDIE Baddies on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and more, and sign up for our monthly newsletter on saddiebaddies.com to stay in the loop. Sending you hella love and stay soft, baddie.